Teamwork can make or break you, and these challenges prove just how important it is. On the 6th day during prep time, Chef Ramsay announced that both teams would be creating their own menu, and Ralph almost took immediate control over the blue team's menu. When Jessica Cabo suggested making a chocolate cheesecake, Ralph shot it down and added a flourless cake. Later, when Andrew Bonito suggested making a braised salmon, once again, Ralph rejected it and added a poached halibut instead. Ralph didn't allow any of his teammates to have a say and rushed the entire menu himself. But wait, wasn't this supposed to be a team challenge? Since the team was forced into preparing Ralph's dishes, things went poorly. During the dinner service, when the blue team received their orders, Andrew started struggling with the halibut dish. Soon enough, several halibut dishes were returned to the kitchen, and all of them had one complaint in common, that the fish was overcooked and tasteless. With absolutely no driving force and a major lack of passion to plate Ralph's dishes, the blue team eventually lost the service. Andrew definitely had a major role to play in this. Throughout the entire service, he was acting up and behaving like a total smart. But what Ralph did to him was even more crappy. Later on, when Chef Ramsay asked about the halibut dish, Ralph chose to remain quiet. Where did all the leadership that he displayed earlier go? That's when Andrew decided to speak up. He pointed out that he had a different dish in mind, but Ralph was the one who insisted on having the halibut. However, Ralph argued that the dish was a team effort. When Chef Ramsay asked if it was Ralph's idea, he immediately said this.
The dish would seem to be a combination of everybody, Chef.
During the deliberations, Andrew was nominated for elimination, but Ralph was eventually called down by Chef Ramsay. During the plea, Andrew refused to take responsibility for the dish and told Chef Ramsay this.
Because that dish wasn't me, it wasn't mine, it wasn't what I wanted.
But despite Andrew's honest plea, Chef Ramsay sent him packing for refusing to take responsibility. No matter whose idea it was, he was responsible for making it, so blaming someone else was useless. After this shocking elimination, viewers soon jumped in to share their support for Andrew. Ralph did Andrew dirty, but what he did to Elsie Ramos was even more terrible. And to make things even worse, Jessica joined him in his dirty game. On the 8th day, after Elsie Ramos won the leftover challenge, Jessica and Ralph became very salty towards Elsie. Both of them were so jealous that they even went and tasted Elsie's dish. During the prep, Ralph, Jessica, and Michael Ray were still bitter about their loss. Each of them were incredibly hostile towards Elsie. And later, during the dinner service, their hostility towards Elsie grew worse. When Elsie struggled with her penne dish, Michael decided to do the dish for her. That night, Chef Ramsay did 3 switches on the station, and during the 3rd switch, Elsie was sent to the appetizer station. Once there, nothing much changed for Elsie since she continued to struggle. Finally, she decided to ask for some help, but everyone was set on not helping her. She kept calling out to Ralph, but he openly decided to ignore her like this.
Where's the rest of this? The rest of this sauce? Ralph.
Ralphie?
Ralph.
Unaware of what was happening, Chef Ramsay blamed Elsie for mixing up the orders. Her frantic behavior was really frustrating Chef Ramsay, so he called her over to the blue kitchen to give her a little pep talk. Poor Elsie was overwhelmed by the cold shoulder her teammates were giving her, and this is how she felt.
I feel like a total outsider, and no one said a f***ing word to me the whole night.
After 2 of the team's tables walked out, Chef Ramsay abruptly shut the kitchen down. Later on, at the dorms, when Elsie admitted that it was her worst performance yet, all 3 of them agreed. It seems like they really wanted her to give up. Had she just received some help, Elsie could have managed to do just fine. That night, Chef Ramsay nominated Elsie along with Jessica. During her plea, when Chef Ramsay asked Elsie about the dinner service, instead of just telling the truth, she blamed herself for being disoriented despite having quote-unquote support. I guess Elsie was aware that her teammates would make her life impossible, and there was no point in continuing if things would just be like this. And since her performance was the worst of them all, Elsie was eliminated from the competition for having a meltdown. However, before she left, Chef Ramsay made it a point to praise and congratulate her for impressing him and making him proud. Michael, Ralph, and Jessica also joined Chef Ramsay to tell Elsie just how proud of her they were. But Elsie didn't believe a word of it since they were the ones who were responsible for her departure. Elsie didn't stand a chance with those 3 venomous teammates of hers, but this next contestant took revenge to a whole new level. Zach Womack was a contestant from season 11 who ranked in 6th place. Zach started off really well, but as the competition progressed, he started to grow pretty arrogant. He was so immature that every time he was nominated for elimination, he threw a fit. Zach's change in behavior became obvious from the 9th episode onwards. After losing the steak creation challenge during the punishment, Zach started to get pretty annoyed with Raymond Alongi. Zach hated how he started instructing him on different ways to cut the beef. Later, Zach targeted Michael Langdon for screwing over the team and shifted the blame towards Barrett Bayer. When Zach continued to act and criticize his team for not wanting to work with him, Raymond was left annoyed. Despite several warnings from Raymond to cut the crap, when Zach continued with his arrogant behavior, it led to a heated argument.
No, that's how the starting to look.
Zach, come on now, enough. I did not do it on purpose.
Guys, why you keep losing?
Zach, shut your mouth right now.
During the next dinner service, Zach's behavior was at its worst. He was at the garnish station, and when he brought his garnish up to the pass, Chef Ramsay noticed that he delivered enough for one portion, not two. But Zach was trying to act superior. He asked Chef Ramsay to chill out since he still had more cooking to do. But we all know what happens when you talk back to Chef Ramsay. The famous chef berated him for acting like a who could only talk but not work. Eventually, Zach managed to make enough potatoes, but Chef Ramsay couldn't get over his attitude. So he lectured him for his poor performance. That night, Zach was nominated with Barrett. And though he said he had passion for what he did, Chef Ramsay accused him of being subpar. Chef Ramsay then gave him 10 seconds to explain what the competition meant to him, and Zach tried his very best to stay in the competition. He even said that the show meant the world to him, but Chef Ramsay couldn't feel his passion. Despite that, Chef Ramsay gave him one last chance, and Zach survived the elimination. But instead of redeeming himself and making the most of this opportunity, Zach declared everyone his enemy for nominating him. During prep, when Raymond offered some help, Zach retorted by showing loads of attitude. But what he did during the dinner service was despicable. During the private dinner service, Zach tried to help Raymond with plating. But Chef Ramsay and Raymond noticed that Zach had only plated a little pasta and no lobster. This frustrated Raymond. But when Chef Ramsay showed another plate of inconsistent pasta, he simply lost it. Raymond was so fed up that he shooed Zach away. But Zach didn't really take kindly to this. He was waiting for the opportunity to get back at him. Later on, when Raymond asked Zach to help him with the lobster, instead of just helping him, Zach decided to take revenge. Zach was so cunning that he decided to sabotage Raymond by cooking the lobster in cold sauce. Well, the trick worked, and when he sent the refire up, Chef Ramsay rejected it. And this made Zach ecstatic.
I'm just laughing, thinking to myself, I got you.
But Zach didn't realize that karma would bite him back. Although he led the New York strip loin course, when John Scallion asked him where the sauce was, he didn't respond. Seeing this, Chef Ramsay accused him of switching off. Sometime later, Chef Ramsay noticed that the steaks weren't seasoned properly. And instead of owning up to his mistakes and correcting it, Zach started to argue with Chef Ramsay. What he didn't realize was that this time he had chosen the wrong opponent. Chef Ramsay accused him of lying, but once again, he gave him another chance by eliminating Raymond that night. It was quite surprising to see Zach make it all the way to the 16th episode. There have been contestants with fewer attitude problems who got eliminated way earlier than him. Finally, Chef Ramsay understood that Zach had been given more chances than he ever deserved. So he eliminated him by saying there once was a chef named Zach for words he didn't lack. But in the kitchen, he was no magician and he won't be coming back. Well, it doesn't surprise me that Zach holds the record for the most punishments in a season without being a black jacket. But this next contestant was so cunning that instead of helping her teammate with a valid health condition, she chose to lie in her face. Michelle Tribble was a contestant from season 14 who ranked in 3rd place. But she came back stronger in season 17 and walked away with the winning title. There's no doubt that Michelle was a great chef. She had an amazing palate, presented some great dishes, and was even really consistent. But what she did with Manda Palomino simply can't be excused. On day 6 during prep, when Manda asked Barbie Marshall to taste her pasta dish, Manda's issue concerning celiac disease was revealed. Since it was going to be an Italian night, it would be hard for Manda. That night, during the dinner service, 2 VIPs dined in. The red team would serve Melissa Fumero, while the blue team would serve Devin Windsor and Olivia Culpo. In the red kitchen, Manda asked someone to taste her pasta since she couldn't taste it. And that's when Michelle came over to help. After tasting it, she claimed that the pasta was good to go. However, Chef Ramsay found the pasta to be crunchy and raw. Manda was obviously annoyed that Michelle let her down. But Michelle, on the other hand, didn't feel bad for her. This is what she had to say.
I can tell when pasta's done just by looking at it, so Manda should be able to do it too.
On her second attempt, Manda asked Michelle to check yet again, and Michelle said the same thing. But when Elise Harris tasted it, she claimed that the pasta was still raw. Manda sarcastically thanked Michelle for trying to throw her under the bus yet again and further cooked her pasta. Later on, when Michelle was walking with her meat to the pass, she slipped, and this led to Amanda having her share of fun. With that kind of attitude, it doesn't surprise me that Michelle holds the record for being kicked out of the kitchen the most times ever. The only reason she got so far in both seasons she was featured in was due to her exceptional cooking skills. But this next contestant was so shrewd that she didn't take any help, didn't appreciate recommendations, and would lash out on anyone who got on her bad side. Tiffany Johnson was a contestant from season 10 who ranked in 9th place. Although Tiffany was a decent cook, she was also one of the most hated contestants from Hell's Kitchen. She was no team player, threw tantrums, and had a careless attitude. She also didn't mind throwing her teammates under the bus. On the second day during the dinner service, Tiffany expressed her concerns about missing scallops to Barbie. But Barbie ignored her and placed 8 pieces on the tray. Tiffany then purposefully sent out an incomplete order, hoping to throw Barbie under the bus. That night, the red team made several mistakes, and this led to them getting kicked out of the kitchen. Being frustrated back at the dorms, Tiffany completely lost it. She screamed at the top of her lungs and knocked over her water bottle. On the 5th day, while in the hot tub, Tiffany heard Royce Wagner complain about Kimmy Willis's tacos. Despite having a no-bitching policy, Tiffany took a big swig of her wine and went to Kimmy and Robin Almodovar and told them what Royce had said. However, she also blamed Dana Cohen, Danielle Rimmer, and Christina Wilson. This led to the red team crumbling in the morning as an argument broke out about the same thing. On the 7th day during the fashion night dinner service, Tiffany was at the fish station. At one point, Barbie tried to help her, but Tiffany didn't appreciate her help. But when Barbie found her scallops sticking to the pan due to the low heat, a small argument broke out between the two. Despite that, when Barbie took the scallops to the pass, Chef Ramsay found that the scallops had no color, and this frustrated him greatly. I mean, how many times could they mess this up? And when Chef Ramsay asked who cooked them, Tiffany bluntly said that she didn't know. All Chef Ramsay could say was this:
It's a joke now. It's a joke.
It's not funny, Chef.
Later, Tiffany asked Christina to look after her fish, and when the fish was sent to the pass, it was deemed cold. When Chef Ramsay questioned who grilled the fish, Tiffany remained quiet, but Christina replied that she did. Then Chef Ramsay questioned who oversaw it, and once again, Tiffany remained quiet. But when she did open her mouth, she put all the blame on Christina.
She cooked it, I've been bringing it up.
Oh my god.
On the 10th day during the family steak night, Tiffany was at the appetizer station with Dana. Tiffany was really slow with cooking the pizzas. And when Chef Ramsay saw the kids waiting for pizza, he literally chewed her out. When she sent out her first attempt at pizza, it came out burnt on one side, but Tiffany could care less. Then Barbie jumped in to help, which Tiffany didn't appreciate. However, Barbie's pizza was accepted. Later on, Tiffany wanted to redeem herself with the blinis, but she was sluggish yet again, and this annoyed Chef Ramsay. And when Dana showed concern about the state of her blinis, Tiffany rudely told her off. But do you know what else is rude? The fact that you almost watched all of this video and haven't dropped a like down below. I spend a lot of time making these videos, so smash that like button. While you're at it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for more content like this. It's completely free, so there's no reason not to. With that out of the way, I think it would have been better if Tiffany had just listened to her teammates. Because, well, when she served her inconsistent blinis, the red team had to start all over again. Again, Barbie jumped in to help, and yet again, Tiffany didn't appreciate any of it. But this time, Chef Ramsay knew who worked on what, so he complimented Barbie on the blinis. And this left Tiffany fuming. Tiffany was so agitated that she was looking for a reason to pick a fight. And just as the service continued, she found the opportunity to argue with Barbie over the garnishes. Eventually, the red team was kicked out of the kitchen after making multiple mistakes. However, both teams were named joint losers, and Tiffany was nominated for elimination. Although Tiffany survived the elimination, this rift that she had with Barbie will go down as the greatest feud to have ever happened on Hell's Kitchen. So these were the Hell's Kitchen contestants who betrayed their teammates. While some of them escaped unnoticed like Ralph, some of them were berated right then and there like Tiffany. But no one was as lucky as Michelle, who slightly pushed away her competition and still remained focused on the prize. If you ask me, I think that Elsie Ramos faced the worst betrayal yet. And not from one, but 3 contestants at the same time. Why was eliminating her from the competition so important to the other 3? Was she that big of a threat, or did they simply not like her? These are some questions that will probably never be answered, but it's kinda better that way. From sabotage dishes to complete miscommunication, these were the worst team performances ever. Chef Ramsay has managed to create quite a few intense challenges for aspiring chefs on the show. However, this challenge from season 1 was such a hit that it went on to become a staple in most of the seasons that follow. Being the first season, the contestants obviously had no idea what to expect from the show. Maybe that explains why this season had one of the poorest starts in the history of the show. The contestants were so terrified that both teams had managed to miserably fail 3 consecutive dinner services. Talk about a rough start. Things had gotten so stirred up that several contestants were booted from the show during this time. With Chef Ramsay down their throats, nothing seemed to be getting better. That was until the 4th episode when both teams finally succeeded in pushing out good food on time. What a relief that must have been. Although this didn't last very long since the blue team was incredibly incompetent. On the other hand, the red team had managed to make history on the show by completing every single order they had received. After a very unexpected elimination and a couple of heated moments, Chef Ramsay decided that it was time to raise the stakes. And well, that's when he decided to reveal the next challenge. That being the pasta making challenge. Chef Ramsay went ahead and demonstrated how to make fresh pasta from scratch. Right from the ball of dough to the kneading to those beautiful strands of pasta. If there's anyone who could make pasta, it definitely has to be the famous chef. I mean, just take a look at this.
Let's feed it through. Okay, Chris.
Yes, chef.
Arms out.
It looks like Ramsay was in a great mood, and this moment definitely called for some fun.
Now look at him now. What a handsome fucking bugger.
Yep, handsome indeed. But jokes aside, would the teams be able to deliver? Each of the teams were given a limited amount of time, 20 minutes to be exact, to create as much fresh pasta as they could. After this simple explanation, both teams were provided with everything that they needed for the challenge. They got everything from the flour, to the oil, to even the pasta making machine. Soon after, Chef Ramsay asked the teams to set up before he started the countdown. At the end of the challenge, Ramsay would weigh the amount of pasta each team had rolled out, and the team with the most would win the challenge. But here comes the twist. The contestants had to match Chef Ramsay's standards in quality and not just the quantity. And well, given the time that they had, this was truly gonna be fun. What's more, the challenge required one of the members from each team to stand still and double up as a sort of pasta stand. Jeremy Madden was asked to be the pasta stand for the red team, while Andrew Madden would take on the same role for the blue team. When Chef Ramsay gave them the go-ahead, both teams immediately started to get their hands messy.
Let the machine do the work, yes?
I got it.
It was crucial to ensure that the pasta would be rolled out on time so none of it would clump up. And this was the key to winning the challenge, since none of the clumped up ones would be accepted in the final weighing. Both teams were in a heated race, trying to do the most with the short 20 minutes that was given to them. You could see Michael Ray whipping the hell out of his pasta machine, since this is how he was feeling.
There was so much adrenaline trying to get that pasta out that I didn't even feel my arms. I was just trying to move as fast as I could.
Getting those beautiful strands out of the machine was just the beginning. Because, well, once the pasta was cut, it had to be hung to dry out immediately to ensure that they wouldn't stick together. And this is where the competition gets even tougher.
Come on. Other way. Just slice it and get rid of it. Let's go!
Once the timer ran out, both teams were asked to come forward and weigh their pasta.
That's in.
The blue team went first and managed to weigh in at 2.41 pounds. And it was now time for the red team. Do you think they whipped out more pasta than the blue team? Well, the red team had already hit the 2.31 pound mark, and they had another batch of pasta that was yet to be weighed. This could really be a game changer. It was a make or break situation, and both teams were anxious to see the result. But when Chef Ramsay picked the last batch of pasta up, this is what happened.
That's uncookable. Another big knot.
Knot after knot. The red team had quite a lot of pasta discarded and finally managed to weigh in at 2.39 pounds. They were now a few ounces short of beating the blue team, and there were only a few strands of pasta left with Chef Ramsay. And after a neck-to-neck battle, Chef Ramsay finally announced the results.
Red team, 2.45.
The red team managed to take the cake, but this challenge will always have a special place in my heart for its intensity, but also for how fun it was. It was one of the few times when Chef Ramsay showed the world what a fun guy he could be. Viewers were quick to pitch in their comments, like one who said, "I love how there are moments when Gordon can go from the British icon of rage to an actually funny guy." Another fan came up with a plot twist of his own when he said, "Throwing flour on Chris and hanging it on him is part of the recipe for making fresh pasta." How about that? Would you want to try some fresh pasta knowing this is a part of the process? Chef Ramsay has rarely had a chance to show his fun side on the show, so if you could remember more times like this, don't forget to share them in the comment section down below. Anyway, in this next challenge, one contestant would have to fight for the team while the other would have to face the consequences. However, things took a turn when one of the contestants did what most would think to be impossible.
I gotta say, pear, chef.
Following the pasta making challenge, here comes the next one, which is, yet again, a staple in this amazing series. During the 11th episode of season 14, the contestants were woken up by Chef Ramsay to get ready for their next challenge. As the lot of them assembled on the field, there seemed to be something hidden underneath the tarpaulin. While the curious contestants waited to hear more about the challenge, you could notice a wicked smile plastered over Chef Ramsay's face. It looks like he's up to something. And nope, I'm sure it's not going to be something enjoyable. Chef Ramsay first asked the contestants how many of them were confident with their palate. This hinted that the challenge had something to do with the taste test that takes place every year. But none of them were prepared for what this actually was.
The dunk tanks, right over here.
A taste test in a dunk tank? What was this challenge all about? Well, here's the deal. One contestant from each team would have to take part in the blind taste test challenge. And well, it goes without saying, but the one who scored the most points would win the challenge for their team. But here comes the big twist. If a contestant gets 2 right answers and screws up on the third one other member from the team would have to face the consequences for it. Yep, this was a demented team challenge whether you like it or not. In a way, the second team member was more of a scapegoat than a contender in this challenge. But how exactly does this challenge work? Chef Ramsay explained that the second teammate would be seated at the head of the dunk tank. So if they got 2 answers right in a row, their teammate would stay dry. But if the third answer was wrong, the teammate would get dunked. However, there was another twist on top of the already existing one. During the challenge, the same duo would have to take turns between tasting and dunking. Now, the only person who had managed to get a clean sweep on this challenge was Justin Antiorio. Michelle Tribble from the red team and Megan Gill from the blue team were chosen to be dunked first. Millie Medley and T. Gregoire were also chosen to go in for the blind taste test. So, who do you think would be the first person to get dunked? Despite every year featuring the blind taste test, one is never like the other. But in this season, one contestant among the blindfolded ones was here to do the impossible. T had a disappointing start when she messed up one of the most common proteins used in the kitchen, turkey. Well, I don't blame her. Because honestly, being blindfolded and under pressure of getting things right can even make the simplest of ingredients confusing. Millie, on the other hand, was off to a great start. But would he be able to continue?
Pears?
Oh man.
Apple.
One more wrong answer from T, and Michelle was that much closer to getting dunked in the cold tank. Both contestants got the next 2 ingredients right, and Michelle was saved the trouble of getting wet. As for Millie, he was beaming with joy.
You have a palate, young man.
Thank you, chef.
Okay, 4 for 4, boom.
How many times have you seen that happen? One fan said, 4 out of 4? That's the highest score I've seen in 14 seasons. In the next round, the red team zoomed past the blue team, and this is what happened.
Bye-bye, Randy.
Oh no, there he goes. In the end, both teams were stuck in a close battle, so they chose their best performers, Millie and Josh, for the final round. Everything rested on their shoulders, and both of them were riled up to prove once again that their palates were the best. Josh took the lead when he identified avocado, but Millie failed to do so with his food. And well, this is what happened as a result of it.
Megan, goodbye. Headset off.
Although Millie couldn't win for his team, he did make a name for himself. Fans were quick to follow up on his progress and said, "Now I realize why Millie deserves a black jacket. His palate is bomb." Well, that's exactly what Chef Ramsay saw in Millie, while a lot of us couldn't. But here comes another taste test challenge. However, this one was even harder than the last. And what happened next shocked both the teams and us all.
Rabbit, man.
Oh no, this isn't happening.
Let's head over to the 13th season of the show. During the 5th episode, both teams had to give it their best performance since this service wasn't a normal one. This challenge was going to test the chef's abilities to identify meat. But the meat was already cooked into a dish. Each team was given 5 dishes, which they had to decipher what meat was being used. Trust me, this is way more complicated than the previous one that I just covered. Because this time, it wasn't just any other meat, but a lineup of some of the rarest exotic and non-exotic meats. Within the 2 teams, the contestants were asked to pair up into groups of 3 and 1 individual. The individual person would have the toughest time trying to figure out their protein since there was no one else to discuss the dish with. What's more, one group among the 2 teams had to be a duo. The duo team would go twice, giving them another advantage to play with. This challenge was surely one of the harder ones since on top of all of these rules, the contestants also had to adhere to a time limit. And of course, this was the main issue.
Because it's not just a protein on a plate. You have all these other flavors masking that protein.
Chef Ramsay sure loves messing with the contestants. And well, this was yet another plan that he had devised to test the chefs to the very best of their abilities. With the competition underway, the first to go were the women. This is when the remaining contestants got a chance to figure out just how tough this challenge was gonna be, and oh was it tough. The women struggled to complete the challenge since they went first and ended with a total time of 7 minutes and 41 seconds. Next up were the men, and they started off on a good note when Bryant and Frank identified elk in just one attempt.
Elk. Yeah, great job.
The entire crowd was shocked. Following them, Santos and Fernando, who were the duo from the men's team, struggled to find the protein. So this set the clock back quite a bit. Somehow, they managed to pull themselves together and the clock stopped with just 34 seconds remaining. The men's team finally earned a win, and this turned the tide on the women's team. This challenge was made for the men who were confident in their tasting abilities, and boy did they rule like never before. But in this next challenge, contestants were invited to go on a shopping spree. However, of course, there was a little catch. It's what one contestant did in response to this that was truly shocking. In Season 7, both teams were fired up after serving the one and only Whoopi Goldberg at Hell's Kitchen in the previous dinner service. However, none of the contestants were prepared for what the next day would bring to their tables. Let me tell you, this challenge was one hell of a banger since the remaining 5 contestants were invited to go on a shopping spree like never before. They were asked to head over to Owen's, a local supermarket, where they would have to collect their ingredients from. But here comes the twist. Each of the contestants would only be given a fixed sum of money to create a dish that would put them head to head against each other. Considering how this was a Hell's Kitchen challenge, how much do you think the budget was? $100? $200? Well, what you're about to hear next is shocking.
So each of you have a whopping $10.
Yep, you heard that right. Each contestant only got $10 to cook up a Hell's Kitchen worthy dish for the win. The dishes would be judged by a panel of 3 gourmands who would taste, judge, and then give the dish a price. Whatever amount they state is what they would be willing to pay at a restaurant for it. This was no regular challenge, this was a challenge with a purpose. It wasn't only to test their abilities, but also to prepare the contestants to create a cheap meal that would pass off as gourmet. With just $10 in their hand, do you really think these contestants were gonna succeed? The contestants immediately started scrambling for their ingredients while also keeping the budget in mind.
You can cut it in half. This challenge is about value.
Ideally, they should have already had a fair idea of what they were about to serve, and each of them had a limited amount of time to fill their baskets. But one contestant was about to make a huge mistake.
Find something cheap is better. I did find some frozen ravioli.
Really? Frozen? Well, I hope he knows how much Chef Ramsay hates frozen food. I mean, he wouldn't have asked the contestants to go to a supermarket with the best fresh produce if he was looking for frozen food. We'll just have to wait and see how this one turns out. After the chefs had chosen their ingredients, each of them had a total of 30 minutes to cook the dish that they'd envisioned. All of the contestants managed to create a dish worthy of the gourmands, but Jason Ellis, as expected, managed to mess things up.
It's an average price of $16. Ouch.
The remaining contestants wowed the judges with their dishes that were on par with each other, with each of them getting close scores. Benjamin Knack placed in 4th with his ratatouille dish, followed by Autumn Lewis's veal dish. Both the dishes were given a markup of $25 and $27.33 respectively. Jay Santos's lamb dish finished 2nd with a markup of $28.66, and Holly Ugald's tuna soared past every other dish with a crazy average of $29.66. One of the judges was so impressed that she gave it an unreal price.
I'm excited by it. I would say I would pay $32 for this.
Wow, considering how this dish was prepared with a mere $10 budget, it really says a lot about Holly's intelligence as a chef. This challenge pushed Holly up the scoreboard, and she finished like the winner she already was. What a well-deserved candidate to sweep away the season's title. Sharing her experience on the show in an interview, Holly said,
"Going from horrible to being able to win all the challenges individually really did grow the most."
Chef Ramsay was looking for someone he could mold into the position he wanted for his restaurant. And from baking pastries to making full-course meals, Holly fit Chef Ramsay's requirement like no other. Tracing her growth on the show, one fan wrote, "Congrats, Holly. Growing from pastries to cooking is one thing. Doing it under the flying spit of Chef Ramsay is another. You truly are a kitchen warrior." And I can't agree more. So these were some of the best challenges on Hell's Kitchen. But who knows, there may be more challenges that are even crazier than these in the future.